Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Wayne's World of Science and Technology. Today, we're going to look at some Russian stuff. First, I wanted to look at Igor Girkin, aka Igor Strelkov, the world's most depressed war criminal. Igor is one of those fascinating villains, much like Yevgeny Prigozhin. Um, he's an evil bastard, but you can't stop looking at him. Anyway, he is the guy who shot down that airliner over Ukraine in 2014. He's also responsible for starting the fighting in the Donbass and also had his hand in Crimea. He is a Russian ultranationalist of the most extreme stripe, so extreme that Vladimir Putin felt the need to throw him in prison. Yeah. Anyway, and as I said, he's the most depressed war criminal because he saw pretty early on the way things were going, and he is not happy. Anyway, let's see here. On his letter dated 6th of October, he's replying to that. Thank you for the information. With each week, it becomes more and more alarming, which, however, is not surprising at all. Having been convinced of the reptilian spinelessness of the Kremlin and its inability to adequately preemptively respond to emerging increasing threats, the partners openly accelerate their hostile actions. By the partners, he means NATO, calmly balancing, not fearing a breakdown, on the brink of direct war with Russia, but now being fully confident that with this national leader, Russia will just boil in its own pot, without even trying to leave it. I have written more than once that the plans of the leadership of the coalition of the willing, and the USA behind them, are primarily primitively simple: to wage war against Russians with the hands of Russians who've deleted themselves into being Ukrainians on the territory of the historical part of Russia, the so-called Ukraine. Now, there's one point here that Igor quite frankly loves leaving out, and that is, while part of Ukraine had been conquered by Russia, another huge chunk belonged to Austria-Hungary. Yeah. Anyway, is successful, and efforts are being made towards this. The war is intended to involve, to support the exhausted Ukraine, several other states of varying military and economic power: Romania, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and later Kazakhstan as well, which can create separate fronts outside the European theater of operations and not under NATO's aegis. Now, I will point out that both Romania and Turkey are NATO members. I don't know what Igor means here, but hey. Um, Anyways, that is by waging, with the hands of mercenaries and a few professional units supporting the armed forces of Ukraine from the rear, a continuous war exhausting Russia, as well as strangling sanctions and blockade. The Allies plan to bring the matter to a large-scale economic and then socio-political crisis, after which power will be shaken, and will be seized by their deeply entrenched accomplices of the fifth column within the Russian state apparatus. Wow, we have a fifth column in the Russian state apparatus. Didn't know that. And he continues, and then those units that NATO is concentrating on the border of the Russian Federation will be needed. They are completely insufficient for conducting a full-scale war, but may well be enough for peacekeeping operations in the support of places favorable to the West inside Russia, in case after the start of a new full-scale turmoil there. Effectively, what he is predicting is a new Russian Civil War, a repeat of what happened in 1917-1918. Unfortunately, I cannot say that the scenario is unrealistic. Worse, its probability is growing, unfortunately, year by year, month by month. And the Kremlin does almost nothing to make this scenario impossible. At least no reasonable strategic steps in this direction are visible at all. It is much clearer that in Moscow they are buying time, either hoping for a lucky chance, or confident that their lifetime will be enough, and after them, let the flood come. If so, this confidence is misplaced. The countdown to the start of the socio-economic crisis has probably started in months. In any case, Moscow so far fully accepts the opponent's game, not even trying to find painful points at its own space, to get out of the war by attrition by its decisive victory. To be honest, today I was simply ashamed to watch how the national leaders, surrounded by brilliant commanders, laid flowers on the tombstone of Peter the Great. Peter Alexeyevich was tough. Oh, tough. It's even scary to imagine how he would assess the outstanding successes of the current irreplaceables if he suddenly rose from the grave to the current earthly life. The discrepancy is so colossal between how the Tsar himself lived and worked and what he demanded from his close associates and what the current elite represents. With this, so as to not fall into some extremism, I end my letter. I think he already fell into extremism. But anyway, that's my personal take on it. Now, here we are. Oops, did it again. This is from last year, but I thought it was interesting. I was poking around looking for information on the Russian internet, and yeah, Roscosmos has lost 180 billion rubles as of August 2024. I wonder how much it's lost, how much more it's lost in the last year, because it's no longer getting Western launch contracts. Now, this is going to have to be made up somehow. And that is going to have to be by the government of the Russian Federation. Okay, journalists for the first time were allowed to do an underground fuel storage for the Black Sea Fleet in Crimea. Ooh, can't even talk tonight. This is important for what it shows us. They feel that the missile and drone threat is so bad that underground is the only option. Now, give me a second with this one. Oh, God. Okay, maybe it's... Ah, here it is. Nope. There we are. Sometimes... English. A drone attacked a fuel warehouse at the railway station at Liski. Traces of the UAV strike were discovered on the morning of May 6th. Okay, this is an older one. During daytime patrol, they noticed the debris of an airplane-type drone had knit on the fuel tank. They got lucky with that one. Oops. Let's go here. The situation with gasoline. New capacities are needed. In other words, they need new production to become online. And they're basically saying that mesh and air defenses are not going to solve the problem of the deficit. They need more production. They're claiming the market is generally stable. There's a ban on the export of fuel. Additional measures of improving the market are being worked on. It's what I'd expect them to say. The point is that they are having a problem, and they're admitting it. Okay, in the Crimea attack, the largest oil terminal in the peninsula. That was on the 6th of October. The flame is visible for tens of kilometers. And he's also reminding you that there's a fuel shortage in Crimea. So public transport routes are reduced, and gasoline is 20 liters to fill up if you can find it. Oh yeah, and hit the airfield at Saki too. The fighters built an underground city to hide fuel and lubricant from enemy drones. Now, a depth of 5 meters isn't necessarily enough. There are brooch-type warheads designed to damage stuff like that. I don't know if the Ukrainians have any. But again, the fact that they're building an underground storage system tells you that it's needed. Okay, this is why it's needed. Here is a Russian system called the Orbit system that turns attack drones into a mass expenditure. Now get this. It allows the ability to control FPV drones from anywhere in the world through a secure digital network. Remember those drones that were flying over Denmark? And yeah. Now, here's a neat one. Anti-drone network. Protection of fuel tanks from UAVs and drones. This system is basically textile, and it's designed to catch things. It can handle debris up to 500 kilograms. Sounds good, but again, you don't do that unless you need to. And in Russia, developed a universal structure to protect oil depots from UAV strike. No, this is not the last article. This is a different one. This is one that's made out of cables, and it's supposed to be good for drones up to 200 kilograms. So we've got two different projects to produce protection for fuel tanks. That gives you a very strong indication that there's a really large need for this. Anyway, um, that's all for tonight. The other stuff I've got open is just my search tab, and that's not going to tell you anything because I'm still digging. But yeah, this is the sort of stuff I'm reading on Russian news. I don't pay any attention to Western news because the reporting is so bloody awful. Uh, that, at least on the stuff I care about. And admittedly, as you may have gathered, what I care about tends to be rather specialized, and most news outlets just don't have the reporters on staff who know it well enough to report properly. Anyway, pardon my moaning and whining about that. Like, share, subscribe if you got something out of this, folks, and have a good day.